Good evening and welcome to the South Dade Democratic Black Caucus Ron Brown Chapters Candidates Forum Series. I am Venus Mia Lovely, the first Vice President of this chapter. Tonight, being the second in the series of forums, you will get a chance to hear from the Democratic candidates running to be our next school board member for District 9. School Board District 9 includes schools in the municipalities from the village of Pinecrest, Palmetto Bay, Cutler Bay, Homestead, and Florida City, along with unincorporated areas of Richmond Heights, West Perrine, and Leisure City, just to name a few. It is my honor to introduce the moderator for tonight, Senator Dwight Bullard. After graduating from Florida A&M University in 1999 with a degree in history education, he taught at Coral Reef Senior High from 2000 until 2017. In 2008, Senator Bullard was elected to the Florida House of Representatives, and in 2012 to the Florida Senate, where he served until 2016. Currently, he is the political director for the new Florida majority. Help me welcome Senator Dwight Bullard.
Greetings and good evening, folks. I'm so happy that we're getting a chance to do this tonight. And thank you so much to First Vice President Venus Mia Fernandez for not only inviting me to moderate tonight's forum, but also getting a chance to engage with folks who will be on my ballot. Before we throw introductions to the candidates, I do want to kind of lay some ground rules and also allow folks who are viewing us on Facebook tonight to engage. We encourage everyone to share this on your social media platforms, create a watch party, begin the engagement. We will be asking a series of questions tonight to really get at what these candidates are all about, what they're going to bring in terms of experience and aptitude to the school board if they are elected, and moreover, give you as a community an opportunity to see who they are and what they're all about. Without further ado, I want to welcome our candidates, and I'll name them in alphabetical order as they pop on, starting with Dr. Justin Koren, followed by Dr. Nancy Lawther, Commissioner Dennis Moss, and Mrs. Luisa Santos. So we're going to go ahead and get underway by allowing the candidates to introduce themselves in alphabetical order. And you'll each get a minute to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, starting with Dr. Justin Koren. Dr. Koren.
Bullard. Thank you, Senator Bullard, and thank you to all for joining us. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the forum to speak directly to those who are going to be voting. I think that was well said. I'm the only candidate in this race for District 9 to have served as both a public school teacher and also an assistant principal. Currently the assistant principal at Miami Killian Senior High School. I'm from Miami. I went to school in this district, raised in this district, won the Silver Knight Award, came back from college, studied all over, both nationally and internationally, and came back to this district and started teaching. And you know, my heart is here. I love what I do. I love doing it every day. I've been doing it for the past 15 years. I'm in the trenches with the teachers each and every day. I'm working in the school system, and I know the real people that it takes to make this possible, to make education possible. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves, and I'm ready to effectuate real and meaningful change. And it's really a pleasure to be here. I look forward to the evening. Thank you.
Followed by Dr. Nancy Lawther. Dr. Lawther.
Good evening, everyone. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. I'd like to thank the South Dade Democratic Black Caucus for holding this forum, as well as the other forums that it's staging this week. When Dr. Larry Feldman, the current member of the school board contacted me to see if I might be interested in succeeding him. It took me about 10 seconds to decide. Public education is currently under attack, despite the fact that it is the cornerstone of democracy and the part of Miami-Dade County that is most likely to feel the effects is right here in South Dade. So I am a parent of a student who attended District 9 schools. I am a career educator. I am the former president of Miami-Dade PTA, serving from Florida City all the way up through the Broward line. And I am an advocate who has fought on behalf of children and teachers in Tallahassee.
Thank you, Dr. Lawther. Next up, Commissioner Dennis Moss.
Good evening, and thank you very much for this opportunity to address everyone. Let me say that, first of all, Senator, I want to thank you and certainly thank SDDBC.RonBrown chapter for hosting this forum. I'm a proud product of the Miami-Dade County public school system. All of my children attended the Miami-Dade County public school system. I've served for over 27 years as the Miami-Dade County Commissioner, one term as the chairman of the board. I led the effort to rebuild South Dade after Hurricane Andrew. 35 years ago, when I realized that students from challenged neighborhoods were being disproportionately expelled from the school system, I created a program to save them from the school to jail pipeline. In 2002, when I realized that students were basically being suspended from schools in a disproportionate manner, I created a community suspension program. That program was really the forerunner to the current student success centers that the school district has adopted. When Dr. Feldman decided he wasn't going to run for office, I took a look at the race then. When one of my good friends entered the race, I decided, not to enter. Pastor Williams later decided that she was not going to continue. And so I decided to take another look. And along came the COVID-19 virus. And I believe that the school system is in need of tremendous leadership and experience. And I believe that I bring those qualities to the table. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Commissioner Moss. Last is Luisa Santos.
Thank you so much for hosting this forum and having all of us here tonight. It is a pleasure to get to share my vision for our schools. And really, I came to the United States when I was 8 years old because my mom sought educational opportunity for my sister and I. And when she visited our public schools, she decided that we had to stay here for the opportunities that were available. Our teachers, counselors, school staff poured into me. So by the time I was a Core Reef CUDA, I wanted to start a mentoring program because I saw that void in our middle schools. And when I went to register with our district, I learned that I was an undocumented student. This did not deter me. Instead, I worked harder to start at Miami-Dade College, eventually graduate from Georgetown University. And while in DC, I worked both as an assistant fourth grade teacher at a very well-resourced school, but also as leading a mentorship and tutoring program for underserved students. I was able to work in the Department of Education under the Obama administration, and I am back home because our district has come a long way, but we've got a long way to go, and we need the next generation of leadership to make that change possible.
Thank you so much. As I may have mentioned before, but I'll mention again, just for the crowd of folks that is now joining us on Facebook, we have a plethora of questions that we're going to be asking over the course of today. And we're asking, of course, folks abide by the timer that everyone can see. No one's going to get penalized. There's no shocking of anyone for running over a minute, but we want to make sure that folks abide by the time so we can get to as many questions as we possibly can. And with that being said, we have an icebreaker question for all of the different candidates, and we're going to go in alpha order again, starting with Dr. Koren. The question is, can you name one of your teachers and why that teacher made a positive impact on your life. Just one of the many teachers that you had, but somebody that comes to mind and how they made a positive impact on your life, starting with Dr. Koren.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to name my first grade teacher, Mrs. Myers, and I choose her for two reasons. One, I think that the impact of teachers can be felt immediately upon entering the public school system, and for me, that was first grade. She allowed me to be myself, and I remember that it was in the subtle ways of encouraging me to explore. It wasn't about my answers being right or wrong. It was about being creative, and it's something that I've always held on to. My history has always been supporting the arts and advocating for the arts. And I really credit Mrs. Myers for giving me the freedom to be able to not just allow me to go there, but to encourage me to embrace my talents and to take risks. And so I really do thank her for that.
And thank you for that answer, Dr. Koren. Next up, Dr. Lawther.
That is an easy question for me to answer. I am going to single out Mrs. Marion Bressler, who was my U.S. history teacher in high school. And she was special because not only had she written our textbook, and it was a textbook that was distributed throughout the U.S., so she was certainly an expert in her field, but she brought the subject to life because for the first time in my life, in my school career, I was working with original documents from the founders of this country, from those who inspired them, and the opportunity to analyze for myself rather than simply to parrot back answers is an experience that I truly treasured. And that is an experience that I have tried to duplicate in my own classes, giving my students the opportunity to work on their own and do their own analyses. Very significant for me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lawther. Commissioner Moss.
Thank you. And there are many teachers that have had a positive impact on me over my life. But I want to single out Coach Leo Williams. And Coach Williams was physical education teacher at Richmond Heights Junior High School. There were junior high schools back in the day when I attended. And the thing about Coach Williams is that he always stressed to all of the young men and women that there was something positive and something good in them and that we could make a difference in the world. He also always stressed that when you finish doing what you need to do from education and those kinds of things, you need to come back to the community or whatever community you land in, you need to give something back because you were standing on the shoulders of those like himself and others who had the attention and the nurturing that help us become positive and good citizens in Miami-Dade County.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Moss. And lastly, Ms. Luisa Santos.
I actually, as soon as you said that, was laughing because I keep this very close to me, and this is from Miss Oliveira. She was my fourth grade teacher. Now, keep in mind, I was still recently arrived in this country and was still learning English, and she taught me beyond teaching me how to correctly fill in a Scantron. She really poured into my social and emotional well-being. She allowed me to dream bigger than I ever thought possible, encouraged me to find the joy in learning, which encouraged me to then join a writing club, of course, to find the joy in writing beyond just how you can write your essay for the FCAT. But more importantly, she went out of her way to meet my mom where my mom was at that moment in time. So she would find ways to contact her very late after she finished cleaning the 3 homes she was cleaning. She found ways to be in touch in Spanish, which was the only way my mom could connect at the time. And she followed up. She became a lifelong educator in my life and mentor.
Thank you so much. I'm sure I can name a bunch of folks in my life, but that's for another day because this is about you all tonight. We're going to go ahead and get started. Tonight, we're going to be touching on a number of subject areas, of course, general priorities for the school board, professional development, funding, policy, safety, talk a little bit about charter schools as well. But I'd be remiss if I didn't start with the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room, of course, is the notion that the governor issued a statement, actually at this point a few weeks ago, basically allowing the school board superintendent to make a determination on the effective opening of schools here in Miami-Dade County. But just yesterday, the Florida Commissioner of Education issued an executive order mandating that all campuses be open for at least 5 days, in essence, mandating that schools be open regardless of the conditions related to COVID-19 impacting our communities. The question for you all, and this will be starting with Dr. Lawther, the question for you all is, what do you agree? Do you agree with the Commissioner of Education making this mandate, and then why or why not, based on the answer to that question? So it's a yes or no question at the front, but please explain why you agree or disagree with the Florida Commissioner of Education's mandate, starting with Dr. Lawther.
I disagree, and yet at the same time, I have read the actual executive order several times, and it is not worded as drastically as has been portrayed in the press. It does give flexibility to districts to make decisions based on the circumstances and the health conditions that are prevailing. That being said, there is so much wiggle room that it seems to me as though what the document does is to allow districts liberty to make decisions, and then it will allow them the liberty as well to take the blame if things go wrong. So the plans are to be submitted to the Commissioner of Education for approval. I imagine they will be approved. But then if a district messes up, there will be consequences to bear, and those consequences will not be felt by the commissioner, but rather by the district. Unfortunately, this is an example of the preemption by the state of what should be a district responsibility. I disagree.
Next up, Commissioner Moss.
Thank you, Senator. And I disagree as well. I think that, the school system needs to have the maximum amount of flexibility. And I say that because I've been sitting in the room virtually with the medical professionals over at the county as we've gone through the whole process of how do we open up and when do we open up, the community. And so, it's important that the school system have that same flexibility. And I say that because some of the things that we thought, were fact about this virus, about COVID-19, those things turned out not to be so. And so we've had to basically then go back and adjust certain kinds of things. And I just believe that the school system needs to have the flexibility, and also that parents need to have a certain level of comfort as to whether or not they want their children to go back to school. So I think having a variety of different approaches will be something that will serve the school district well. But this ironclad, we need to open up the school system on day one. I don't agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Santos.
Yes, I do not agree with the commissioner's order. I think the most important thing here, and I'll say it time and time again, is that we listen to our public health officials, that we listen to our scientists, and that we listen to our families' needs. And while there is flexibility, which I have also read the original document, and I'm glad to see that it is not as strict as has been portrayed in the media, The issue here is we are now mandating how schools will have to spend their resources, how our district will have to spend resources by mandating that every school have an option for open buildings, when instead we could leave that flexibility, because our local communities know best what we need, to ensure that we are allocating resources within our district where they will best help meet the needs of students, keep our students and teachers safe, our school staff safe, and ensure that we prioritize the mental health and social-emotional needs of our students before even just throwing them into an academic push.
Thank you so much, Ms. Santos. Lastly, Dr. Koren.
Thank you. Listen, I don't agree, and I'll expound upon it by saying the following. Not only have I been witnessed to the virtual aspects of not just distance learning, but the conversations that have been on the school board to date. And I do commend the district for taking initial action in terms of options and looking at hybrid models when and if we are to push the go button and get things rolling again. But let's be frank, we have 2,066 new cases today in Dade alone. And we're in a worse spot than we are now than we were when we shut the schools down to begin with. So I think we need to prepare. I think preparedness is key, but I also think we have to listen. I have been going to work as an essential personnel, literally putting on PPE with my colleagues, working food distribution centers. I see the fear and the worry in our community's eyes, and also in the eyes of the teachers. There's a lot of safety issues that need to be considered, and it's not just the students and the parents, but it's also to ensure that our staff have the protection that they need in order to do the jobs that we want them to do.
Thank you so much for your answer, Dr. Koren. All right, we're going to go ahead and jump into some of the questions that have been laid out for us, starting with this question. As you all know, you'll be taking office really essentially as the school year begins. What would your number one priority be for the 2020-2021 school year and school board calendar? And we're going to go ahead and start with Commissioner Moss on this question. Again, what would your number one priority be for the 2020-2021 school year? You're on mute, Commissioner Moss.
My number one priority will be for the safety of students and the staff at school. And that's in the sense of safety from potential, violence and those kinds of things that we saw with Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, as well as protecting students and staff people from the COVID-19 virus. So those will be my top priorities going into the new school year.
Thank you, Commissioner Moss. Next up, that would be Ms. Santos.
Yes. My number one priority will be ensuring that we meet the needs to basically bring about equity. We need to make sure that as we come back to school, whether it is only through distance learning or the schoolhouse model or blended models, that we meet the unique needs of our students who need us the most, are those English language learner students, those recent migrants, students with IEPs, students who have unstable home situations, and ensuring that we are meeting, like I said, the mental health and social emotional needs of those students will be crucial to ensuring their long-term success. At the same time, prioritizing the needs, both mental health, social emotional, and safety of our school staff. A lot of times, we are not talking enough about our staff and how much they are sacrificing, and the fact that they have their own lives, right, that we have to take into account. So ensuring we have better inputs to land at a place of more equity.
Wonderful. Following up, Dr. Koren.
Safety, and safety. And safety does need to include not just our traditional response. Before the pandemic started, I was still on safety. We're in a district now that is effectuating 30-odd drills a year. And so many studies have shown that it's actually doing the opposite. It's putting a lot of our students into distress, a lot of our teachers and staff into distress, We have security monitors right now who are coming in making $17,000 a year, but are the first line of defense. We need to think security from top to bottom and reassess the way we're spending our dollars to make it work. But without question, we need to revamp the way we keep our schools safe for the COVID crisis as well. And that includes something that we often don't think about, but that something is sanitation. It's something that I deal with on a daily basis in my job as the assistant principal at Miami-Killian. I oversee plant maintenance and security, and it's something that is in dire need of attention, both from a financial allocation of dollars and also from training. And so I think when we talk about safety and security, we need to look at more than just personnel. We need to look at really what's going to keep everybody safe in our buildings.
Thank you so much, Dr. Koren. Dr. Lawther.
I think that the greatest priority will also be the greatest challenge, and that is marshaling the resources that our district has in order to reach as many students as we can with quality academic programs, with quality emotional support, and with support as well for our teachers and staff. We are getting a certain amount of funding from the federal government, and we have the referendum dollars that we can count on as well. But we are going to have to prepare for the future as well, because prospects economically for support of this district, indeed its very survival, the survival of individual schools within District 9 is going to be dependent on how carefully we can marshal our resources to meet the needs of students, teachers, and schools.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lawther. All right, our next question deals with community. And so the question is, what resources and/or services beyond academics do you believe schools and the community should be providing to support students and their learning? So again, what resources and services beyond academics do you believe schools and the community should be providing to students to support their learning? And this is going to start with Ms. Santos.
Yes, throughout this trail, I have spoken about an Adopt a School program. This will be one of the ways in the short term, right? We have programmatic and systematic answers. One of the programmatic short-term answers will be to reconnect community with schools. We have communities in schools, which is an incredible program, which should be expanded to more schools, but we also need to create those connections. I have talked about creating this Adopt a School program between our faith institutions, even sororities, fraternities, and non-for-profits in the community to reconnect those dots. Additionally, we need to ensure we are providing restorative justice training, trauma-informed teaching, culturally relevant teaching, and training to everyone in our system to ensure that they are set up for success in their jobs. And we need to step back also and ensure that our students are being prepared for the real world and ensuring that we have opportunities for them to experience more in the real world by way of internships and expanded programs. And lastly, ensuring that our educators have access to all those programs as well.
Thank you so much, Ms. Santos. Dr. Koren.
Yes, sir. When I was working to open up Cutler Bay Senior High School, a brand new school that we were struggling to identify how we were going to be different. And we collectively, the students and the staff, decided to embrace a program that was offered by the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, which was called No Place for Hate. We were the first school in Cutler Bay to say we were going to really infuse this curriculum, not just in the school, but let it also bleed out into the community. Let it be adopted into the community. Let this be a new fabric of identifying what we stand for and accepting all people, regardless of the different backgrounds they come from. And within 4 years, that program spread, and it spread to every middle school and every elementary school within that municipality. And we saw, and as we can see, the studies will tell you that it takes about 4 to 5 years to change culture in an institution. What we saw, we were actually changing culture, not just in the institution, but in the community as well. I would adopt more programs like that, like No Place for Hate, throughout the district. One of our board members right now, Dr. Bentris Mendenhall, said that we as educators, as a district, we need to adopt the classroom of life. And so I would be a big proponent of partnering with programs that would do just that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Koren. Dr. Lawther.
This is a topic, the idea of the relationship between communities and schools, that is very close to my heart, because we have in our district schools with the name community as part of the school name. But the door has essentially slammed shut, particularly in the post-Parkland era. Our neighborhood schools have been abandoned in the parental rush to find a school, what I call Shangri-La school, up the Palmetto. And we have been neglecting our community's desires and our neighborhood's needs in terms of nurturing our schools. So I would like to look at a model as currently in effect in Orange County Public Schools. There is East High School that is a true community school with wraparound services, with the cooperation not only of the school district, but also University of Central Florida, Children's Home Society, and there are also medical providers. That is a start. I would like to see established within South Dade a true community school.
Thank you. And lastly, Commissioner Moss.
Thank you, Senator. And again, you know, I've got to agree with Dr. Lawther. I'd like to see us get back to the day when we had community schools, when we were offering adult education and services, you know, to the community. What happens too many times in our schools is that after 3 o'clock or so, the schools basically go dark, and they are just a, you know, huge institution sitting in the middle of communities that they can basically help to uplift and to move forward. I also think that we have to look at the issue of and the challenge of schools that are locating in, you know, near neighborhoods that are challenged, and siphoning students out of those schools, you know, to the new school, and then leaving the neighborhood school, that challenged community, leaving that school open to potential closure, repurposing, and those kinds of things. If you look at all of the schools, or many of the schools in South Dade, many of them have been repurposed. And again, that's because we've not paid attention to basically trying to preserve and make sure that they function as a big part of the community.
Thank you so much for your answer. I have my list of questions, but I kind of want to rework the wording on this one to piggyback on some of the comments that you all shared just now. As you know, District 9 runs the furthest south of any district at the school board level, meaning that the parents of District 9 students are oftentimes commuting much further and much longer than anyone else in the county. This means that if the student is going to a school within District 9, they're oftentimes left during those key hours of between 3 to 7, really, with little to no supervision sometimes. And we always hear the term equality versus equity. We know the schools are funded, quote unquote, equally, but understanding this disparate challenge of commuting and parents who are maybe working long distances from their children, what would you do as a school board member for District 9 to create equitable programs that address these students having to spend long hours without parental supervision or without direct guidance from folks who may be head of households because of their commute? So what equitable programs would you bring to South Dade because of these travel times? And this is going to start with Dr. Koren.
Senator Bullard, I think we have a lot of programs. I'm a huge proponent of expansion and expanding, especially the arts. I was shocked to see one of the middle schools down south was in danger of losing their marching band that they had spent years and years to create. It was at South Bay Middle, and I was there during that time. I opened that school. I think that the biggest issue, you kind of nailed it within the question, is transportation. And it's an issue that has become more and more serious as the years have progressed. When we started this magnetization of schools, in the beginning, everybody got bus transportation. They got public school busing. Wherever you lived in the county was going to take you to your school of choice. So the issue is not only an after-school program, but it's also a get-to-the-program problem. We have students that would love to study a specific program of study, but they can't get there because there's no bus provided. And so we have that divide, not only in after-school, but actually getting to the physical school. Way back when, we had something called the activity bus, and it was a bus that was funded through our dollars. It was just allocated to enable students to stay after school and participate in athletics, in clubs. I can't tell you, and I say this to you as an assistant principal, I can't tell you how many students want to participate. They want to be a part of what we have, but they just can't get to and from their homes. So I really do think the number one issue, it may not be the whole issue, the whole solution, but the starting point is to allocate funds for transportation.
Thank you, Dr. Koren. Dr. Lawther.
I think the community plays a large role in this. And I think that we can actually make use in terms of parental involvement in the schools in ways that we might not have imagined pre-quarantine. We are now on a platform that is virtual. And there are parents, of course, that are spending multiple hours in virtual meetings. We could harness that technology to have parents and caregivers get access to the school site. A parent, for example, at lunch, they may work miles and miles away, but they might be able to drop in and spend time with their children through virtual platforms. With respect to the after school period, this coincides with my idea as well of creating facilities within the school for the community to enter after hours between 3 and 9 p.m. as well as weekends. Schools should be a center of community focus, and therefore that presents the opportunity for supervision on a wide scale basis.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lawther. Commissioner Moss.
Thank you, Senator. Again, I go back to the whole notion and idea of community schools. With community schools being in place, you're able to leave those schools open longer during the afternoon hours and into the evening hours, where, again, services can be provided to the students as well as services can be provided to the community. And I also still go back to this whole notion that schools that are in challenged neighborhoods are facing a lot of pressure these days because students are being siphoned off from those particular schools, going to the brand new shiny school over here. And what's happening is I just fear that, as we've had issues in the past, those schools from challenged neighborhoods are going to find themselves, under threat of closure or, again, repurposing. And that's a big issue that we need to basically address in this community.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Moss. Ms. Santos.
I totally understand this issue because sometimes I can be in traffic for 2 hours coming from Homestead and having to have meetings downtown. It's an equity issue in the fact that we still lack opportunity in the southernmost parts of our district, and parents have to leave our places. We need to ensure, of course, that we have strong economies in the South as well, which I'm happy to be a part of South Dade Accelerate and the chambers in the South to really create these partnerships so our parents don't have to do that. But by way of our schools, what we need to do is ensure that our facilities remain open and this is what I did when I ran my third grade literacy program. We started as an after school program, but I saw that, again, students on the weekends, we were losing them literally in those 2 days. And so we started partnerships with the community centers so that our students partnered through our schools, had access to programming that was engaging for them on the weekends. And then lastly, we need to ensure that we have transportation. At Palmetto Middle. The biggest challenge they had was ensuring that the students who wanted to participate in those programs after school the most could actually get there. So they, out of their PTA raised funds, had to pay for that bus.
Thank you so much, Ms. Santos, and thank you all. Your answers have been tremendous. I know you all can't see, or maybe you can actually. The chat is going wild. People are giving shout outs to you all. So kudos for inviting your friends, family, and everyone else, as well as concerned community members to the space. We're going to talk a little bit about professional development and teacher retention. Recently, of course, Governor DeSantis signed a $500 million allocation for teacher salaries, but many of that being earmarked for beginning teachers or early teachers, and not really cementing our veteran teachers or teachers who are highly qualified, higher degreed, et cetera. We know that still has to be worked out in collective bargaining, of course, as well. But what would you as a school board member propose to help retain those veteran teachers? And I want to add an anecdote that one study shows that given the current conditions, we may lose as many as 20% of our teaching workforce because of the conditions that were being created both pre-COVID and in the midst of COVID. So what would you as a school board member propose to help retain some of those quality veteran teachers in our district? Starting with Dr. Lawther.
Of course, we cannot lose our treasure, which is our career teachers, our veteran teachers. Thank goodness for the voters of Miami-Dade who passed the referendum, because the referendum 362, and I advocated for that at 8 of the 9 town halls across the county when I was president of the PTA, that has rescued to some extent the faults of Tallahassee. So as a school board member, the first thing that I would do would be to propose a very hefty and substantial legislative platform at the state level that the school board does every single year. It proposes measures it would like to get passed. And I think we do need to address the fact that we have now teacher salaries tied to student performance. That was the bill that rocked me out of my seat in 2011 and got me involved as an activist for education. Then there are other additional measures we need to suggest for Tallahassee to improve the situation, such as the annual contract, which disappeared, and now there is no guarantee from one year to the next.
Thank you, Dr. Lawther. Commissioner Moss.
Thank you, Senator. While I'm extremely pleased that starting teachers have gotten a well-deserved raise, I was very disappointed in looking at things that our veteran teachers, the ones who basically been on the front line for many, many years, that their pay was not equitably adjusted. And so I think that going back to Tallahassee and requesting that we look at those veteran teachers is one thing. Looking at our own budget as we go through the whole collective bargaining process is another thing that we need to take a look at. But we've got to find a way, to make sure that we can compensate good, competent teachers who are veterans and who've led the way in our school system. And we can't afford to have them retire or go looking for employment someplace else because we failed them. So that would be what I would be focused in on.
Thank you so much. Ms. Santos.
Yes, we must absolutely treat our educators as the professionals they are and value them as the professionals they are. Many of the teachers that I speak to frequently are obviously frustrated with both pay, but also with a system that is impossible for them to navigate. I have so many teachers coming to me and saying, I literally do not understand what is going on with my pay and my benefits. So ensuring that we have clear systems is hugely important. And I cannot emphasize enough that everyone should absolutely be also paying attention to who you're electing to our state house and senate, because we absolutely need to ensure that they fund public education and fund our teacher salaries the way that we know our teachers deserve. And of course, we need to create leadership opportunities within the teaching profession. Why is it that a master teacher who is incredible at their craft feels like they must go into administration to really move up in their career? We need to create opportunities for those teachers to teach other teachers and to advance in their career while remaining in the classroom.
Thank you so much. Dr. Koren?
Well, let me respectfully just disagree with the tail end of that. My colleagues are working in the district, and I can tell you right now that teachers are actually making more than many assistant principals. And you have many administrators who are asking for what we call career redirection, because they have no allotment of funds from the referendum that passed. The referendum that was necessary. It was a Band-Aid, and it was a much necessary and needed Band-Aid. But it doesn't solve the problem. The problem is going to be solved by money. That is the answer. People in the middle, those mid to veteran teachers, not on the front end, but on the back end, they're the ones that are for sure getting the worst end of the deal, and it's just not acceptable. There's no other way of putting that, and money is going to fix the problem. That's just the forthright blanket overall way that I think we're going to fix it. But you asked something else, and that was about professional development. And I do think that also factors in. I think we have veteran teachers who are struggling now more than ever with distance learning. We as a district did not adequately train those teachers and provide them with professional development, which in some ways is a little shocking, because one of the standards that teachers are assessed is on technology integration. But I don't think any of us were prepared to switch 100% of our rollout to distance learning. So I think we have to own that, and we need to ensure that we're going to support teachers at every step in their career.
Oh, well, thank you again for your answers. And we're going to kind of stay on that $500 million allocation a little bit. We're in the midst of another set of uprisings as it relates to prioritizing Black lives. But we also know that a disproportionate number of our school bus drivers, school security staff, school cafeteria staff, paraprofessionals also happen to be those Black lives. How or what would you propose as a school board member to address the critical need to enhance the salaries of those school security staff, bus drivers, cafeteria staff that are also essential to creating a robust learning environment for our students? Starting with Commissioner Moss.
Thank you, Senator. Just like we paid attention to starting teachers, and some focus has now come on those teachers who are in mid-level, we've got to also pay attention to the frontline workers who get our students to school every day, who fix their meals, who make sure that the building is taken care of. And again, it's going to take money, it's going to take funding, and that's something that we're going to have to take a look at as we prioritize our budget, the school board's budget. Again, we want to make sure that they are not left out of the equation. We want to make sure that they can make a decent living and also be able to take care of their families as they take care of the children of our families.
Thank you, Commissioner. Ms. Santos.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great. Look, In my life, Mr. Nelson, Ms. Brown, Mr. Hodge were the people who made a difference. They were all security monitors, and they were the ones looking out for me in the hallways and ensuring that they were the ones who cared about me as a human first, not just a student. And our budgets are a value statement, and we need to ensure that how we pay people is reflective of how we value them. We have places where we are ensuring that we are placing funds, and that includes we are investing beyond our state mandated 1 SRO in every school. Why shouldn't we invest in the people who get to know our students day in and day out and know them as people first? So we need to take a hard look at our budget, make sure it is reflective of who we value and what we value, and ensure that our cafeteria workers, our bus drivers, our security monitors are well taken care of.
Thank you. Dr. Koren?
Very, very straightforwardly, this is about respect. The second that a student gets on a school bus, the experience of Miami-Dade County Public Schools begins. And that respect has to continue all the way through the cafeteria lunch line. It continues through the change of classes, and it continues through the entire exchange, through our security monitors, through our clerical workers. Every single person makes what we do happen every single day. Right now, while so many of us are safe at home in our homes, quarantining and letting others go out there and do the necessary essential work they have to do. Listen, that includes our custodial staff, which is putting their lives in peril every day. It's the cafeteria workers who are actually preparing the food each and every day for distribution. There's a value. And I know we talk about money, 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 but at the end of the day, that is the answer. We need to put our heads together and prioritize. With respect comes a dollar amount. We need to be also cognizant of the fact that many of these individuals are struggling with the pennies that we pay them to continue their education. And I would love to see a program rolled out specifically for support staff to help compensate those who are seeking advanced degrees so they can better their own lives and hopefully return to the district in another capacity.
And lastly, Dr. Lawther.
This situation was brought to my attention front and center during a discussion at North Miami Senior High School PTA. One of the parents present was also a cafeteria worker. And we were speaking about the referendum, and she turned to me and she said, "This is all fine and good. The referendum is going to take care of teachers, instructional personnel, as well as school resource officers. What about us?" So as at that point, chair of the Parent Budget Advisory Subcommittee, I brought forward that question to the group. What are we going to do about the other essential employees, whether bus drivers, cafeteria workers, custodians, and so forth? We need to make sure that they get the respect that they deserve. We do need more flexible funding from the state. That is a legislative priority, because when funding comes from the state, it's tied up in little packages. We are not able to use it as we wish. This is one priority that we should emphasize.
Thank you so much for your answers. Kind of as we scrolling through the questions, trying to prioritize and keeping an eye on the time as well. One of the essential questions, especially because I know a few of the folks in our chat may be contributing to this program, the Florida Lottery. So with the Florida Lottery, as we all know, 100% of those dollars are in some way, shape, or form used for education. We know that. A lot of folks don't know that. So for those who don't, who are watching, I do want to say, as a former legislator, I know that 100% of those dollars are being used for education in one shape or form, whether it's through Bright Futures, through direct educational funding, through support funding, et cetera. The question, though, is many of the dollars that used to be going to education in the general fund have been extracted by the Florida legislature and not prioritized for education. You know, one of the many roles of a school board member is to advocate for your district in Tallahassee. In what way, whether it be creative or noticeable way, would you as a school board member advocate for more school funding from the Florida legislature in Tallahassee? And we're going to go ahead and start with, I believe Ms. Santos is kicking this one off.
Yeah, this takes relationships. Nothing gets done without relationships. Through my campaign, we have developed a robust fellowship program where we have high school, college students, and even teachers, and we have community Q&As. We have at this point invited many of our legislators who represent us today to have those conversations and ask them hard questions in a way that really seeks to find solutions. And those relationships are what I plan to build on to be able to bring back those dollars and really have robust conversations about the fact that we need to fund education. I will say on the lottery side, the lottery funds Bright Futures, and we need to ensure that Bright Futures is more equitable. There's been a trend of increasing SAT scores for Bright Futures, which is very problematic because the SAT is not only not a great indicator of success in college, but it historically has disadvantaged students of color. Which brings me to the point that more importantly, we need to ensure that we have very robust CAP curriculum for our college advisors who need to ensure that our students are meeting the requirements to be eligible for those Bright Future scholarships.
Thank you so much, Ms. Santos. And again, want to find out what ways would you advocate for getting more funds back into the classroom up in Tallahassee is the essential question. Dr. Koren, floor is yours.
Right. I think it's important to just explain to some people who may not know that the role of a school board member, you know, it's we deal with local issues. We deal with obviously state issues, and we weigh in on the federal level. We deal with worldly issues. But at the end of the day, I think what we need, especially in District 9, we reference the diversity of the geographical region that this district covers. We need someone who's able to roll up their sleeves and to lobby for the causes that matter. Let me be very clear so that my words are not misconstrued. Education takes everybody. It takes every single person, and I'll say it time and time again. We don't have programs to fund if we don't have teachers to be compensated to run those programs. So my heart, I have been a teacher for over a decade before I became an assistant principal. We need to prioritize not just how we get those dollars by lobbying, but how we're going to then use those dollars. And that for me is the real divide. But I am 100% pro public education. That includes everybody, every single day that works to make this operation so successful. And I just, you know, we're also mindful of the chats that are on sidebar. Let it not be misconstrued. I support teachers 100%. And I think all teachers deserve to be recognized, as does everybody else that makes this operation run as beautifully as it does.
Yes, and we're going to go ahead and allow Dr. Lawther and Commissioner Moss to get their answers in. But since Dr. Koren did raise the point, we do want to make sure that the folks in the chat are being respectful, being mindful. It's great to advocate for the person that you want to choose and educate your fellow community members on who your favorite person is. But we also do not want to make this personal. We do not want to wage attacks on individuals or disparage people's character in this space. Healthy debate is always welcome. That is the essential nature of politics. But what we want folks to do is be mindful and respectful, because one of these individuals will likely be your school board member for District 9. So we're going to kick it over to Dr. Lawther to answer the question again. What would you be doing to help lobby and advocate for the school district as a whole, but especially District 9 in Tallahassee in terms of prioritizing education? Oh, it looks like we may have lost Dr. Lawther. Hopefully she'll join us back again. So we'll kick it over to Commissioner Moss.
Thank you, Senator. And let me be extremely blunt at this point in time. The way that you're going to change that is you got to make sure that we have the right people in office in Tallahassee. This just doesn't happen with the lottery dollars. This also happens with the Sadowski Fund that's there to provide affordable housing in the community that gets raided every year. Unfortunately, we've got some great state legislators in Tallahassee, great delegation, members, but too often we wind up having, from a local standpoint, having to fight the very same people who are in Tallahassee supposedly representing the community. The same people that we represent, they're supposed to represent, but it doesn't turn out that way. They have their own agenda sometimes. And again, the only way that I see changing that is that we have to change the folks that are sitting in the seats in Tallahassee.
All right. I see Dr. Lawther reconnecting with us. I want to, give her an opportunity as soon as she's able to join us. Hey, Dr. Lawther, welcome back. Hopefully, I'll restate the question. The question is, of course, what would you do to advocate for the district and, of course, District 9 beyond the school board up in Tallahassee?
Question with respect to the lottery and the legislation?
Yes. You're freezing up on us there, Dr. Lawther.
Yes. I have been going to Tallahassee since 2007 to advocate on behalf of public education for the PTA legislation committee. And in that capacity, I'm sorry?
You're still able to go. Go ahead. We hear you.
Been going since okay. Oh, you do. All right, thank you. Since 2011, as part of we have been analyzing education legislation and speaking with legislators and before legislative committees, including on the funding issue. I have seen where funding such supplement, but rather to supplant. And in addition to advocating changes in something called the cost, the advocate for more flexible funding for all of our districts. I have cultivated a number of relationships with legislators. Indeed, I am Senator Rodriguez, and by my House member Hernandez, as well as Representative Duran, Representative Jones. And this is in advocacy. As I mentioned earlier, state levels, the federal budget, the percentage of the federal budget spent on education has dropped. It is less than 3%. Not this coming year, but for subsequent years as a result of the economic downturn. Will not be a stranger in Tallahassee. I have not been. I'm going to cross my fingers very strongly and need the hope of everybody who is watching to elect excellent representatives and
thank you.
November election.
Thank you, Dr. Lawther. And I'm not a computer engineer. I'm not one of the Geek Squad from Best Buy, but we want to make sure everyone's Wi-Fi is substantial and working, and whatever we can do to remedy that, we hope you work that out, because we want to make sure folks hear all of your answers. So the question I have is for all of you, one of the terms that's been thrown around, at least for the last decade plus, is school choice. And the reality is that choice as a matter of Webster's dictionary sounds very simple and plain, but of course the term school choice has been relegated to a number of different spaces. What I would like for you all individually to tell me is, what is your definition of school choice, and how would you exercise giving both students, parents, and community school choice based on your definition?
I am hearing you.
Oh, can you hear me, Dr. Lawther? All right, let me restate it again. Looking for your definition of what you view as school choice. How would you exercise that value that you believe school choice is as a member of the Miami-Dade County School Board? And we're going to go ahead and start with Dr. Koren.
I think that school choice means just that. It's a choice, and it's a choice that is not just on one side of the equation. It's allowing the parent to assess the programs that we offer. I think we've done a remarkable job of creating a lot of different programs within our public school, our traditional public school rollout. I would be in favor of rolling out more vocational programs. We spoke about it a little bit earlier, but I would like to see our adult educational and our alternative educational programs embrace this idea that there's not just one single pathway to success. Choice should not just equate to magnet options, but should really be able to be just that. It's what is going to be in the best interest of the child. I think we are well on our way. We have come a long way, but I think that we need to do a better job of educating the parents, of educating our communities at large, because I can't tell you how many people that I've spoken to who don't even know what options are there. Homeschools are fantastic. The resident school that we should never turn our back on the homeschool, but we also should recognize that we're in a competitive era, and this competitive era should be a time that no child should be unable to attend that school of choice due to lack of transportation or residing in a specific zip code. And that's how I feel on that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Koren. And again, we're hoping to get Dr. Lawther back, but in the meantime, Commissioner Moss, floor is yours. What is your definition of school choice, and how would you exercise that value as a school board member?
Thank you, Senator. And again, school choice is basically giving parents an opportunity to make certain choices for their children. But I would temper that, to some degree with the conversation that I've been having all evening, and I've been pivoting back to. And that is the whole issue of what do we do with neighborhood schools in challenged communities when students are constantly being siphoned or leaving those particular schools, and then those schools become vulnerable to basically be closed or be repurposed. When you look at District 9, many of the schools that are in challenged neighborhoods today, and not your regular elementary school or middle school and that kind of a thing. They've been repurposed. And the problem that I have with that is that we don't see that happening in neighborhoods that aren't challenged. And so we need to provide school choice, but we also need to temper that with making sure that schools in traditional neighborhoods, challenged neighborhoods, those schools are around a certain community.
Thank you so much. We're going to go to Ms. Santos and then come back to Dr. Lawther. Ms. Santos.
You asked about the definition of choice, and to me, choice is really defined by ensuring that there's a program that fits the specific need of each child, of each family, of each educator even, and ensuring that everyone's needs are met. So whether you are focused on athletics, whether you're focused on the arts, whether you're focused on pre-med, choice should be dictating what options you have according to fit. It cannot mean choice between good or bad, which is unfortunately what is happening to most of our students or families who are equating choice and the programs that exist today with leaving a poor situation to a better situation. That cannot be the case. We have to ensure that every single neighborhood, every single community has access to a high quality program, and that it is accessible for students and families to have their needs met.
Thank you so much, Ms. Santos. And hopefully we'll give Dr. Lawther an opportunity. I'll pocket that question. She'll get a chance to get at that if she is able to join us again via her connection. Are we back? Can you hear me, Dr. Lawther?
I can hear you. And I am gathering the question was on school choice.
Yeah, but let me restate it just because I know what it's like to work out the technical difficulties. Just want to make sure, what is your definition of school choice, and how would you exercise that value as a school board member?
School choice is far more than what it is being currently portrayed, which is the opportunity of a child to attend a non-district school. And the rhetoric that one often encounters in Tallahassee is precisely that. Choice is perceived as the opportunity to go to a charter school, to go to a private school, and now we have schools that are private but nonetheless receive state funding. School choice, in my view, enables a parent to select whether it is a neighborhood school, and that may indeed be the best possibility of all. That was the case in the with my own son, or another school, and that gives the opportunity for the child to benefit from programs that they might not be able to benefit from. However, why not create those same opportunities within the neighborhood school? I think we have spent too much time developing magnet schools here and magnet schools there. We need a solid return to valorization of what we offer at the neighborhood schools, with a variety of rich curricular offerings that includes vocational, which is now called career and technical education, that includes the arts, that includes extracurriculars. And so we absolutely need to stress the richness of what we can offer close to home.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to frame this next question as really a yes or no question, just because I believe I know where everyone stands. However, I still want to give you the right to elaborate if you so choose, since you do have a minute. But if you do want to answer this, just simple yes or no, feel free. And the question is simply, do you think that charter schools, especially both nonprofit and for-profit charter schools, should have the same governance, basically be treated equal to your traditional public schools? Again, you can say yes, no, and elaborate. You do have the minute. But again, the question is, do you believe that charter schools should be treated equal to your traditional public schools? And we're going to go ahead and start with Dr. Law.
No, I do not. These schools were designated originally as experimental, and yet, as the years have passed in Florida, have come to not only rival but supplant our traditional neighborhood schools. They have done so and have escaped many of the strictures that determine what happens at a traditional neighborhood school. And I will take, for example, the current hot button question, which is the sharing of referendum dollars. 80% of our population voted in favor of the referendum, and it was later attacked as an opportunity for charter schools to get in on the funding that we had intended for public school teachers because the state had not provided sufficient funds. So no, I think they do not get treated the same way.
Thank you. We're going to go to Commissioner Moss.
Thank you, Senator. I would say from a governance and standards perspective that yes, they should be treated the same way. They should have to adhere to the same strict guidelines that our traditional public schools have to adhere to. And I'm the canary in the mine. And I keep coming back to, to this issue. I'm not opposed to charter schools. But what I am opposed to is, again, the siphoning of students from our traditional neighborhood schools, particularly in challenged communities, that place those schools at peril, that have had those schools all repurposed. When you go to R.R. Moten, when you go to Beckford Elementary, that's now basically all pre-K. Those kinds of things bother me. And we've got to do something to make sure that we protect those institutions that have served our community for many, many years. And again, we've got to keep our eye on the ball as it relates to that.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Moss. Ms. Santos.
Are the same accountability and transparency of our charter schools as we do of our public schools. It's very simple. You want public funds, you have to follow public rules.
Oh, there it is. All right. Dr. Koren.
I concur with that. I think anybody who takes taxpayer dollars needs to be transparent in the way the money is being spent. And I think it really is, for me, a transparency issue.
Wonderful. Thank you for your answers. This next one's going to be starting off with Commissioner Moss. And recently, the United States Supreme Court unfortunately handed down a ruling that now would basically result in the further expansion of the scholarship programs that send money to religious schools, private schools that are coming out of our state coffers. Since you're running to be the school board member for Miami-Dade County Public Schools, how would you advocate for the retention of dollars back into traditional public schools or into public schools as a whole, when you know that there are folks at the state level that are staunch supporters of the expansion of these private scholarship programs? Starting with Commissioner Moss.
Thank you, Senator. Again, I'm the canary in the mine. And I'm saying, I'm telling you that, the whole process is that you have all of these other entities, whether they be charter schools, private schools, religious schools, and everybody's trying to basically get a cut, a share of the public school dollars. And so the schools that suffer are our traditional public schools. And again, I get back to the whole issue of what's going on in Tallahassee. It's happening because we don't have the right people sitting there who are going to look out for the interests of all of our neighborhoods and all of our communities. The reason why this money is being siphoned off is because those individual legislators in Tallahassee, they support that effort. And again, we've got to take care of our traditional public schools, particularly ones that are in challenged neighborhoods, because those schools are vital to the vitality of those neighborhoods and communities.
Thank you, Commissioner Moss. Ms. Santos.
Quite simply, I just do not support these voucher and scholarship programs. You will have me everywhere advocating for ensuring that our public schools are where our public dollars go. If you want to fight for private interests, they're going to have to fight against a very strong public school advocate who will reveal their donors and their interests, because unfortunately, education is looked at by some as a place to make money. And education is a place to open doors of opportunity, and it is the foundation of our democracy, and we have to fight hard to make sure we keep it that way.
Thank you so much. Dr. Koren.
I go back to what I said. I understand this position well, being someone who has worked day in and day out in our public schools. The last thing you want to do is lose the funds that keep this going, that are so important to making it happen every day. But we need to step up on a local level and lobby. But we need to lobby for what our people want us to lobby for. We're the vessel. We're the one that makes it happen. I think that we need to realize that there are different tiers to this equation. Tallahassee creates the policy. They send it on down to us, and we have to make sense and then roll it out and make it work. So a lot of it is understanding what is happening so that we can get up there and we can fight to preserve those dollars. We can't do it alone. The way we do it is also extremely important. The way that our tone, our decorum, and the way we talk with one another, both locally and when we go abroad outside of our backyard and outside of the dais on the board, I think we need to be able to listen and react and respond. It takes that kind of a person. The answer simplistically is being able to lobby, but it's being able to get those people to listen to what you're saying and to be able to ride with you so that you get what you need out of the conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Koren. Lastly, Dr. Lawther.
This has been a question of spin. There has been 20 or 25 years worth of spin denigrating our public school system and suggesting that teachers are incompetent or lazy. We need to, first of all, counteract that spin with our own successes. For a long time, there has been an argument within the district budget with respect to whether or not we should publicize ourselves. I have started already on my social media indications of support for our various schools within the district. I will continue to do so. But in addition, we need to educate our stakeholders who have no idea how education is funded. They need to know and therefore be energized and mobilized into supporting our district goals. So the question of eliminating Schools of Hope or eliminating the Family Empowerment Scholarship, that rests on the backs of our voters.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lawther. We've had a very robust discussion tonight, and I have a couple more questions, kind of in light of what we've been seeing, especially most recently in the murder of Mr. George Floyd in Minnesota. We saw that the school board recently passed a board item beginning to address systemic racism in the public schools, or at least opening the door to have that discussion. I'd be curious to hear from you all, considering the challenges at the school site in dealing with some of these issues. We've heard stories of microaggressions happening at the school. We've heard stories of, unfortunately, teachers, not seeing students as their whole selves when it comes to the issues of race. And now we have an opportunity to begin to address those issues. I'd be curious to hear from you all. How would you show up as a school board member in District 9 in addressing the issue of systemic racism at the school site level or at the district-wide level? How would you as a school board member address systemic racism in Miami-Dade County Public Schools? And we're going to start with Ms. Santos.
Yeah, if anything has become clear is that it is not enough to be, to not be racist. We have to be actively anti-racist. And I have unequivocally stood with our communities at multiple marches, demonstrations. I know I've seen you at some of them, because we must stand up for our students, especially our Black students. We know that the school to prison pipeline disproportionately affects our Black students. And it starts in our schools. That is why we need to ensure that we have implicit bias training for all educators entering our system, because our educators need that support and training to understand the issues that they may not even be aware of, because microaggressions, a lot of times people don't even realize they're doing them. And why? Because they haven't had the training to reflect on those biases they hold. Most importantly, we need to invest in those preventative measures that I keep talking about, about. We have to lower our student to counselor ratio. We have to ensure that we have the right mentorship programs for all of our young people to be poured into, and to ensure that we have a diversity of even college and technical education programs for all students to be able to feel engaged in school.
Thank you so much. Dr. Koren.
You know, this is something that I have to say. You nailed it. I would insert the word institutional. I think it's an institutional issue that we have, and it's prevalent from the district all the way down to the schools. We need to look in the mirror. We need to understand that what's happening in the world is for sure happening at every level. It's feeding the school to prison pipeline that we talk about. We do a lot of talking, but I think it's time to recalibrate our thinking. And it's time to talk about not just, and I'm not saying this in any adverse way, I'm using this as a springboard to go to the next level. It's not just the bias training, but it's the accountability that comes along with it. I mean, how many professional developments do we roll out, both for students in terms of programmatic offerings, and then actual PDs for our teachers, that we don't have any follow-up. We do a survey and then we go back to doing business as usual. I think that, you know, the Miami Herald referred to it recently as a proposed new social order. And I think that it starts locally, it starts in our schools, and it starts with not just offering curriculum enhancements, sensitivity training, bias training, but it's accountability. And what I mean by accountability is if you don't do it, that there has to be an action. There needs to be a response, an immediate response, that if we're expecting you to do X, Y, and Z, how do we know that it's being implemented in our classrooms, in the school buses, in the cafeteria, and eventually that mentality will find its way out into the world, into the homes, and that's how we're going to change the world.
Yes, Dr. Lawther?
Yes, I was in strong support of item H9, which was Dr. Bendros-Mendengo's item at the last school board meeting, and actually had a comment in support read into the record. I had previously marched in the South Dade March for Justice, carrying a sign saying, I support H9 and H10. H10 was an item by Dr. Gallen. There are a number of concrete tools that we already have at our disposal and that need to be implemented to a stronger degree. One is the Diversity, Equity, and Excellence Advisory Committee, which is made up of district personnel and community stakeholders that has at its disposal the opportunity to collect statistics with respect to student disciplinary measures. Those statistics as well refer to the numbers of minority teachers, the numbers of students who are afforded access to AP courses and other advanced work. We need to take advantage of the tools that we have at hand and further develop additional tools.
Thank you. And lastly, Commissioner Moss.
Thank you, Senator. First of all, I would lend my voice of
Hold on, Commissioner Moss. Want to make sure someone was answering the phone, but go ahead. I want to restore your full minute. Go ahead.
Okay. I would lend my voice, my strong voice, to that of Dr. Bendros-Mendengo and Dr. Gallen, who have carried the torch on the school board, fighting for equity and recognition, for history and those kinds of things that we are seeing playing out in the streets of our country. Having said that, I wanted to share a quick story. I was in Dunkin' Donuts this morning, getting my coffee, of course, with my mask on. And I had a young man come up to me and say, I hear that you all are basically going to be changing the name on Dixie Highway. And I said, yes, we're going to be removing the name Dixie because it stands for the continuation of slavery in the South. And he was saying that he didn't know that. Could he Google it? Yeah, you could Google it. He said he went to Palmetto, so he didn't know that. And those are some things that we have to work on. But finally, I want to say to our young people, if you're listening, to the parents, I'm so proud of our young people out there in the streets. When we think all is lost, our young people always come to the rescue and bring back a sense of morality as it relates to our country.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Moss. Kind of staying in line with this line of questioning, as we know, folks have mentioned the school to prison pipeline and being an issue. Miami-Dade County is one of the few school districts that actually has its own police force. But at the same time that those officers may be trained differently than Miami-Dade police officers, one of the ways in which students are introduced to the school to prison pipeline in Miami-Dade County is by having small occurrences or instances escalate upon sentencing or the charges that are placed on them. More specifically, for instance, if a student shoots a spitball in school, that can be trumped up to an assault charge. The reason I say that is because I've seen that. I've seen students perp walked out of school for throwing a folder or throwing a paperclip. And I'm not saying anything more than that is an unfortunate way in which students are oftentimes railroaded into a system that we already know is unjust. As a school board member, you do have regulatory authority over our school police department. In what ways would you, as a school board member, help guide our police department on how to better interact with students, especially students of color, and more explicitly, Black students? How would you be an advocate for changing the regulatory authority of our district-wide police department? And we'll go ahead and start with, I'm sorry, Dr. Koren. Yes.
Very good. Our officers are referred to as school resource officers. And I think that everybody needs to remember that the resource component is what I would fixate on and I would prioritize as a school board member, because I think officers have the unique ability to de-escalate instead of escalate situations. The world has changed. Maybe the world hasn't changed. Maybe we're now looking at the world the way we should have looked at it many, many moons ago. But it's our job right now to appreciate what's happening around us and to prioritize a recalibration, including accountability, which means that people need to do the job that they're hired to do. Our officers are hired to be a resource. It's an extension of the educational process. There's an opportunity to save children and not commence the school to prison pipeline. And you're going to have a huge supporter in me. That is first and foremost. I have worked with officers. I've worked with some amazing officers. So to say that all officers, I don't stand by that. I think that school police has the potential to be very, very different. And I think we need to invest in that. And what I mean by investment, I am in favor of a transparent civilian oversight committee for school police as well. I think we do need accountability. I think that the Washington Post, they came up with an article earlier this year that school police is one of the most fastest growing areas of law enforcement around the country. That doesn't mean that just because they're school police doesn't mean that we have biases, both conscious and unconscious biases that exist. So it goes back again to accountability. You need to toe the line. You need to do the job that you're hired to do. And if not, there needs to be an immediate consequence. These officers have the ability to flavor and change the way that students can ultimately advance through our system. And we should be spending our time putting investments into kids to help them, to rehabilitate them, and to give them that guidance at every opportunity that it is appropriate to do so.
Dr. Lawther, I don't know if you heard the question. Y'all, you're on mute. So sorry. You have to take yourself off mute, Dr. Lawther. There you go. Oh. You're back on mute. There we go.
There we go. There we go. All right. Our district, as all districts in Florida, is under the order by state statute of having an armed person on campus. Of the options that we are given, namely arming school employees, I am opposed to that totally, and I've argued against that in Tallahassee. Our second option is to hire a security company. And I am equally opposed to that because I do not find the degree of professionalism necessary for interacting with children. They do not have the proper training in child development, child psychology. Our third option is to use municipal or county police forces, and that we have seen. We thank municipalities and the county during our time just after Parkland for stepping in, but they as well are not trained in child psychology and development. Our best option under the mandate that we have is schools police, which we can recruit according to our own standards, train according to our own standards, retain or not according to our own standards, and therefore that is the best option.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Moss.
Thank you, Senator. I believe, that we have to make sure that we have the kind of training available, particularly in light of everything that's going on in the country today. And then we have to hold those who have the responsibility of providing safety for our students. We have to hold them accountable. But safety is the number one issue, with me. And in my other public life, as a county commissioner, I've always said to all of the majors and to the director that I want fair and professional enforcement, but I want enforcement. I want to make sure that the community is protected, and we need to make sure that the children that we have responsibility for and the staff, that they are well protected. There's an officer in West Perrine named Ron Tooks, okay? And he has been responsible for single-handedly diffusing so many issues in the community because he knows how to deal with the neighborhood. He knows the culture. He understands that. And I think that that's a part of what we have to look at as we're bringing officers into the various schools.
Thank you, Commissioner Moss. Ms. Santos. Ms. Santos, got a little freezing action going on there. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, this is very clear to me. I do not believe that increasing officers in our schools is the answer. The state may require it, but that does not make it right. Our counselors save students. Cops don't. Our social workers save students. Cops don't. And really, when you're in the community and the people I speak to, it is evident that when you take into account the relationship that exists generally between communities of color and police, adding more police is not the answer. So I've had the pleasure of meeting Officer Ron Tooks as well, and I will require training so that our officers can be more like him, the resource officers that we must have in our schools. But I will ensure you that as a school board member, you can count on me to ensure that our budgets are value statements that show that preventative measures that build our students from day zero are much better than those punitive measures that frankly set them up to enter a system that it becomes impossible to exit, as I know too many people who have gone through, unfortunately, the consequences of having cops in our schools.
Thank you so much. So this is going to be our last question before we get to your closing. So I want you to be thinking about your closing, but the question I have for you kind of dovetails off of what Ms. Santos mentioned, and many of you have mentioned over the course of tonight, and that has to do with mental health. The reality is that the senior class of 2021 will have experienced the aftermath of Parkland, as well as the mental strain of COVID-19 before they graduate. They're starting off their senior years in peril, and that can take a toll. You have families that have lost their jobs. You have families that may unfortunately lose their homes or their dwellings at a rapid rate. So then the necessity of mental health becomes critical to making sure and ensuring that our students have at least some level of a regular or normal school year. And so my question to you is, as a school board member, how would you advocate for expanded mental health, not just for students, but also for staff? Starting with Dr. Lawther.
This is a crucial question, and the first advocacy point that I would embrace would be arguing for more flexible funding as it comes from Tallahassee. Right now it comes tied up in little packages that can only be used for certain purposes. If those packages were indeed liberated and we received our funds, it would be far easier for us to budget. Tallahassee has neglected mental health for many years. As a matter of fact, I recall attending meetings with the Dade legislative delegation where our mental health nonprofits have pleaded not to be cut. There was a bill advanced by a former Senator, Nancy Dietrich, to increase the number of counselors per student. By the time she finally got a bill passed, it was simply to name guidance counselors as school counselors instead. That has not been a state priority. We need to exert a strong and unified school board advocacy position in supporting our students' mental health needs.
Thank you, Dr. Lawther. Commissioner Moss, how would you advocate for more mental health for students and staff?
Today, with everything that is going on, we have to pay more attention to providing mental health services to students and to staff, because everybody's under a tremendous amount of strain. Also, because of the popularity of social media and the kinds of pressures that social media places on individuals, we've got to really focus funding. Maybe one of the things that we can do is look at some of the CARES Act money that may be available to to use to assist individuals who have been impacted by COVID, both students and parents. So that might be something that we can take a look at, but we've got to do more in the area of mental health, which we just need to do more in that area.
Thank you so much. Ms. Santos.
Yeah, we have a 462 student to one counselor ratio across our district. We have to lower that. I will ensure that we lower that, because even the best of our counselors are being set up to not be able to meet the needs of their students. We need to ensure that we also have mental health supports for our educators. Of course, we see an increase in suicide rates and suicide attempts. This is a tragedy, and we cannot afford to say, well, we have to wait for our state to prioritize mental health. Our students and our educators cannot wait for our state to prioritize mental health. We have to prioritize it locally, and we have tools at our disposal that can create access through telehealth, through ensuring that we have the appropriate support for our teachers, our staff, and our students by way of online communication, and ensuring that the partnerships we do have with outside providers are well known, because so many people in our district do not know the partnerships we already have with outside providers to seek the help they need when they need it.
Thank you. And lastly, Dr. Koren.
This is a very heavy question. It's something that I wish we had more time. I recognize we don't. Let me say to you, we are not doing an adequate job. We are scratching the surface of the iceberg that needs to be completely unveiled. Mental health coordinators at my school alone, we have gone through 3 in 1 year. Mental health works when it has continuity to the services. It's not about meeting on a one-off. When you assign a mental health coordinator once a week to a secondary institution, and then let's say somebody takes a sick day, you don't see that person for another 2 weeks back at your school site. Mental health is about relationships. It's about trust. We need a movement to bring back the old trust counselors to every single secondary institution. We need to recognize, as you stated in the question, that mental health goes beyond just the resources for the children. I oversee mental health at a school. That's what I do. My #1 job at Killian is crisis and mental health services. And I can tell you that we're doing the best we can with what we have to work with. But if I go back to 2004, 2005, when I first started teaching, right after the murder at Southwood Middle School in Palmetto Bay, which is included in this district, we had teachers who came to work the day after the murder, the day after that tragedy, teachers who needed counseling themselves and had to then in turn provide counseling. I think we're starting to talk about it, but I think we have a lot further to go.
Thank you so much. And I can't thank you all. If there was a crowd and we were in a space, this is where I'd say round of applause for the great work of the candidates tonight. You all were poignant in your answers. You stayed on time, and it gives us the room to allow you these 2 minutes. We're going to start in reverse order for closing. Since we started in alpha order, we're gonna start with last letters first, starting with Ms. Santos.
Yes. Thank you so much to the South Dade Democratic Black Caucus, Ron Brown chapter, for hosting this. It is so important that we all stay engaged and informed. Look, I'm running because systemic issues require systemic answers. And the politics of the status quo have gotten us to this moment. With all the challenges we face, I think it is most important that we now focus on the opportunity that we have. We are in a moment that is hungry for movement-based change, and this can be the tipping point in our fight for educational and racial equity. But we can only seize that opportunity if we move forward with the next generation of leadership that is dedicated to progress. My experiences have absolutely prepared me to face these inequities head on and with the required relentlessness that is necessary. Of course, through my time as an undocumented student, as a mentor, as a teacher, as a tutor, as an advocate, and even working in President Obama's Department of Education, I have witnessed the impacts that these structural changes have firsthand, and I'm running to fix them. I know that education sits at the intersection of all of the other forms of discrimination and inequity, whether that be racial, economic, social, healthcare, et cetera. And I also understand that our district has come a very long way, but we have a very long way to go. So now the question is, will we break these systems of discrimination, or are we going to allow them to persist? And in me, you are going to elect a school board member who is going to listen to you, who is going to fight alongside you to realize our vision of a school system that cultivates a love of learning, that gives children access to a choice-filled life, and most importantly, where all really means all. I will be a board member who will fight to close the achievement gaps, to dismantle the school to prison pipeline, who will support our students beyond learning how to test well, and of course, who will empower our educators and our staff with the ongoing support and resources that they absolutely deserve. So if you share that vision for our schools, please join our movement. You can go to luisasantos.com or contact me at 786-584-7220 anytime. I know our system can work for everyone, but we're going to fight to get it there, and I'm proud to be fighting alongside all of you.
Thank you so much. Just friendly reminder, all your information is running under your names as you speak, so you don't have to restate the website unless you didn't give us that information at the beginning, or you want to shout out your phone number like Ms. Santos did, because I know that she does that. So next up, Commissioner Moss.
Thank you, Senator. And a big shout out to SDDBC.RonBrown chapter. And Senator, let me say that you should have been a candidate in this race. With your experience and your background, you should have been in it as well. Having said that, when Dr. Feldman decided not to run for re-election, I explored running for the seat. As I was pondering a run, a family friend entered the District 9 school board race, Gloria Williams. And so as a result of that, I decided to back off at that time. Later on, she decided that she was going to leave the race. And so I started looking at, the race again. And out of nowhere, along comes COVID-19, the kind of pandemic that we have not seen in this community. And I knew that experience and leadership would be needed to help the school district get through these very difficult times. You know, the kind of experience and leadership that I gained over 27 years as a county commissioner in District 9, where many of the neighborhoods that are part of the school board, District 9, are part of. The kind of experience and leadership that I showed, you know, having led the effort to rebuild South Dade after Hurricane Andrew, the kind of experience and leadership I gained from creating an alternative school 35 years ago in responding to the fact that a disproportionate number of students, primarily Black students, were being expelled from the Dade County public school system. And so there was nothing in South Dade to help those young people. And so I created a program, a school that still exists today. The kind of experience that I've gained from creating in 2002 a community suspension program. Again, because we had students who were basically being suspended from school in a disproportionate way. And we understand all of that. Again, you know, I'm putting myself out there asking humbly for the support of the community and asking humbly for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Moss. Dr. Lawther. You're on mute, Dr. Lawther. Oh. Let's get you unmuted so you can, so the folks, there you go.
I am, yes. I'd like to thank the South Dade Democratic Black Caucus RonBrown chapter as well, and certainly you as moderator, Senator Bullard, for giving us all the opportunity to address our key issues, mine being educational access and equity, school safety and security, and community involvement in our schools. Thanks as well to my opponents for a lively discussion, and to those who are viewing this forum this evening for their engagement on this topic, which is so vital to the future of South Dade and all of its vibrant communities. Miami-Dade County Public Schools stands at a crossroad and simultaneously facing multiple challenges: chronic underfunding, an uncontained and very deadly virus, preemption of local control, a demoralized workforce, imminent retirement or loss of some key school district leaders. The person who takes office in November as your next school board member, who is going to be one of at least 3 new faces on that board, will not have the luxury of a honeymoon period. That person will need to be ready on day 1 to meet all challenges and to fight for the often neglected students, parents, teachers, staff members, and schools of District 9. I stand ready, willing, and able to do so. I've seen education from the 3-foot level, from parent to child, from teacher to student. I've seen it at the 3,000-foot level as head of the county PTA, representing close to 50,000 members and over 200 schools. And I've seen it at the 30,000-foot level, advocating in Tallahassee and analyzing and formulating K-12 education policy. My goal has been, through the last 10 years since I became active as an advocate, to be what my son's kindergarten teacher was, namely a veteran with flair, somebody willing to innovate, but with the experience to know what works. I humbly ask for your vote in the upcoming elections and for the honor of serving as your next school board member.
Thank you, Dr. Lawther. And lastly, Dr. Koren.
Thank you, Senator Bullard, and I want to thank the entire caucus for allowing us to talk with people. This is what it really is all about. This is what politics and running for office should be about hearing the issues. And so I appreciate the healthy dialogue and the conversation so that all the public can learn about who we are as candidates. Starting with the fact that I am the only candidate in this race who is a current teacher and administrator. I'm an assistant principal. I've been a teacher for over 10 years. 4 years ago, I became the assistant principal of Miami Killian. And I know all of us, have our stories and that we are passionate about what we do. But I have to tell you, my passion is every single day in the school site. I love my job. I want to make it very clear that I'm doing this because I want to do more. I want to impact on a larger level. I want to help people at a larger level. I have had a great fortune of having the last 15 years span my career from one end of the county all the way to the other. I've worked literally in so many different municipalities that have been that comprise District 9. And I've gotten the opportunity to not just see the diversity, but to appreciate the diverse needs of what it takes to be a board member in this district. Because what matters in Pinecrest is not the same thing that matters to folks in Richmond Heights. It's not the same that what matters in Homestead to Palmetto Bay, and you can go on and on. It doesn't mean that anybody's needs are better or worse. It means that you need somebody in that seat who's going to understand how you can fight simultaneously for all of these kids. It's about kids who rely on us to do the job that we need to do. The irony is only a few of our students, our seniors maybe who turn 18 in their senior year, get to cast a ballot in this election. So it's up to us. It's up to us, the adults, to exercise our right to vote, our responsibility to vote, to put the right person in that seat. And I think that person is me because I do it every single day. I have dealt with the tough issues. I want to just end where we started. If we can make school fun again, we're going to get through this crisis. We're going to get through the pandemic. But when we do, we need to be excited once again about the educational process. And I look forward to being there to help make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Koren, and thank you all for participating tonight. I do also want to extend thanks to the Ron Brown South Dade Democratic Black Caucus for hosting this event. A few housekeeping notes. Same bat time, same bat channel tomorrow. You'll be able to see the candidates for District 9 County Commission. Our candidate, Commissioner Moss, is leaving the County Commission due to term limits, and the folks that are vying to take his to walk in his shoes a little bit will be here on Facebook Live tomorrow night, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Many of the voters in District 9 are also District 9 County Commission voters as well. And also, I wear a hat as the political director for the New Florida Majority, so I'd be remiss if I did not remind folks that you need to be registered by July the 20th, in order to participate in the August 18th elections. The August 18th elections are where you'll find your school board members, your county commission candidates, county mayor, judicial candidates, as well as primary candidates for Congress, State House, State Senate, and so many other folks. For the folks in this community, August 18th is an essential election. November 3rd is going to get a lot of attention. We need to see you at the polls August 18th. I saw some folks talk about vote by mail. We understand COVID is out there. COVID is real. And we want to make sure that folks are playing it safe. So if you have not requested your ballot, you can go on to miamidade.gov, the elections website, and request your vote by mail ballot so that you can vote for these fine folks as well as others on the August 18th ballot. Again, make sure you're registered by July the 20th for the August 18th elections. I can't thank you enough. It has been an honor to moderate this panel, and I look forward to seeing somebody on the dais downtown in a little while. So thank you all for the opportunity, and good evening.